27-0 win over Olathe Northwest. Their players, coaches, and staff worked hard all season to earn an achievement that will be remembered in the Manhattan community forever. In 5A, my hometown of Salina is celebrating a very special moment. The Salina Central Mustangs brought home the state championship with a 51-34 victory over Basehor Linwood. For the students, families, and alumni who have longed for another state championship for the last 20 years, congratulations on bringing your title home. You all deserve it, and we are all so proud. In the 1A division, Sterling football defeated Rossville 35-34 in one of the closest and most competitive games of the season. Games like this reflect the best of high school athletics, determination, sportsmanship, and communities rallying behind their teams. In an 8-man Division II, Hanover earned a 28-20 victory over Victoria to secure another championship for their school. 8-man football has deep roots in rural Kansas, and Hanover's success highlights the strength of programs that represent some of our smallest but proudest communities. Mr. Speaker, 4 state championships in 1 year from schools in the Big First District is quite an accomplishment. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the strong communities, dedicated coaches, supportive families, and student athletes who put the work in day after day to bring these championships home. I ask my colleagues to join me in congratulating these young men, their schools, and their hometowns. They have represented Kansas with pride, and they have very bright futures ahead. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with that, I yield back.
The chair recognizes a gentlewoman from California, Ms. Kim Lager-Dove, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to just say that Republicans have endured a rather lopsided relationship with Donald Trump this year. Dare I say abusive. So I hope you will consider this a Republican intervention. And for the record, these are not attacks, they are just facts. On health care, Republicans cut $1 trillion from Medicaid with their big, ugly bill, threatening their own vulnerable constituents when 3/4 of Medicaid enrollees are in red states and rural hospitals across this country are struggling to stay open. Republicans then shut down the government to avoid a vote on extending ACA subsidies, only for Trump to later come out in support of extending these subsidies. A recent Navigator poll shows that Americans blame Trump and congressional Republicans for rising health care premiums by a 26-point margin. And surprise, surprise, Americans also overwhelmingly blame Republicans for the shutdown. I see tread marks everywhere. Redistricting. The drama started when Trump called Greg Abbott and demanded 5 more Republican seats in Texas, triggering California's redistricting effort that could cost California Republicans 5 seats. It is funny how my Republican colleagues remain silent when Texas, Ohio, Missouri, and North Carolina gerrymander, but throw a tantrum when California punches back. The chip deal, and I don't mean nachos or potatoes, I mean the AI computing national security kind. For years, my China hawk Republicans warned about the competition with the CCP, only for Trump to ignore them and greenlight NVIDIA H200 chip sales to China in exchange for a 25% fee. What happened to tough on China, y'all? Then the boat strikes. Republicans have abdicated their constitutional war powers authority, allowing the Trump administration to carry out extrajudicial killings off the coast of Venezuela under the guise of stopping drug trafficking. And meanwhile, Trump just pardoned the president of Honduras, who was convicted of helping to move 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. So you need to square the circle for me, y'all. Please do it. Now, the deficit. Republicans who call themselves fiscal hawks stayed true to President Trump and got rewarded with a $2 trillion added to the national debt, bringing us to a whopping $38 trillion. So how many zeros is in that number? Far too many for Americans to afford. Then there was the mighty whiplash of the Epstein files. Trump and Republicans spent an entire year trying to block the release of the Epstein files, only for Trump to reverse course at the last minute when he realized the release was inevitable. Then tariffs and affordability. For a full year, Republicans said nothing while Trump rolled out illegal, arbitrary, chaotic tariffs that raised prices across the board. And in just 8 months of Trump 2.0, the average American household spends $700 more on basic necessities. This season's most popular holiday gifts are up 26% since last year. And during the affordability crisis, Trump banned the word affordability from Republicans' vocabulary. But affordability is still in the dictionary, and it is still on people's minds. The economy is an A+++ hot mess. And lastly, farmers. Earlier this year, Republicans watched quietly as Trump destroyed USAID, an agency that bought crops from American farmers, many of whom backed Trump and the Republicans in 24. And when beef costs reached record highs in October, they watched again as Trump proposed buying beef from Argentina rather than American farmers. Last month, Republicans forced a vote denouncing the horrors of socialism. This week, they're applauding Trump for using it to bail out the farmers that his administration failed. Please consider this an intervention and get out of this lopsided relationship now. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Benz, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to call out the injury and injustice being inflicted upon my state and my constituents by the inappropriate and unfair enforcement of the Endangered Species Act, as it's been and is being applied to the reintroduction of the gray wolf. This injustice is apparent in the federal government's inability to manage and control the killing and maiming of livestock, and in the failure of governments to properly pay the cost of its decision to reintroduce the wolf. I will address the lack of management first. Let me begin my discussion of failed management by showing several pictures which are graphic illustrations of the reality that my ranching families face all too often. As you can see, there is nothing refined about how a wolf goes about feeding itself. You can imagine the feelings of the rancher when he or she finds livestock torn apart and dying. These animals may have been part of their herd for a decade or more. You can try to imagine the incredible anger they feel knowing that they are legally prevented from stopping the wolf that caused this pain and horror to their cattle and calves from doing this again and again and again. I have held meeting after meeting across my district listening over and over to stories about wolves attacking herds, scattering cattle, and ignoring the ineffective hazing efforts that owners of these cattle are allowed to use under the law to try to protect their livelihoods. The anger and intense frustration they feel is totally understandable, and it's why I'm on the floor today sharing as best I can their pain with you. If we are to protect those who are trying their best to feed this country, to make a living, to keep their small and often remote communities viable, to put out range fires, to pay their taxes, and to continue to be productive parts of this nation, we need to delist the wolf and move the management of these animals back to the states. Now let me turn to the actual cost of the reintroduction of the wolf and the need for those who have created this cost to be responsible for paying it. The actual annual cost of the wolf imposed upon the cattle businesses across this nation as of a few years ago is estimated to be $128 million a year. This number is higher now that cattle prices are higher. Many think that the only cost of the wolf is the killing of livestock, but the impact of primal fear that cattle understandably feel when a wolf is near has dramatic and serious impacts on weight gain and on pregnancy rates. These losses are real and they are serious. In a time when even the president is concerned about beef prices, these losses affect everyone by reducing the size of the cattle herds and their productivity. There has been legislation enacted both in the big, beautiful bill and at the state level to try to bring some reimbursement equity into play by providing at least some payment for the death of cattle caused by wolves. But these programs, although welcome, come nowhere near to making those damaged by wolves whole. In addition, I can assure you that the rancher would absolutely be happier if he or she could completely avoid the losses that lead to asking for justice under these programs. If we are properly and fairly and logically to manage the wolf, we must pass Congresswoman Boebert and Tom Tiffany's bill, H.R. 845, the Pet and Livestock Protection Act. This would delist the wolf and allow states to manage these populations. And if we are properly to allocate responsibility for the monetary cost of the wolf, those millions of dollars each year unjustly imposed on ranchers and farmers, damaged by the reintroduction. We must appropriate the money needed to make these good people whole. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from the Virgin Islands, Ms. Plaskett, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to express condolences on the passing of Alyssa McKay. Congresswoman, I just want to share that the Virgin Islands has lost one of its great creative and cultural visionaries with the passing of Ms. McKay. Her creative spirit and generous heart touched countless of lives across the island of St. Croix and throughout our territory, and indeed not just the Caribbean, but other places. As a self-taught artist, she channeled what she described as divine expression, creating work that reflected her deep love for our islands, our culture, our people. Her art was an extension of her soul, vibrant, authentic, and deeply rooted in her Crucian roots. Beyond her artistic talent, Alyssa dedicated herself to uplifting our community in so many ways. She served as an educator, taught yoga for 4 decades, worked tirelessly with our seniors through the Interfaith Coalition, and gave her time and wisdom to numerous organizations, including Unity St. Croix, the St. Croix Environmental Association, and the Women's Coalition. Her compassion, spiritual leadership, and commitment to service made our Virgin Islands a better place. Ms. McKay lived with purpose and love, seeing the divine in everyone she encountered. My heartfelt condolences go out to her daughter, Ayana, whom she considered her greatest accomplishment. And to all who knew and loved her, may her memory be a blessing, and may her artistic legacy continue to inspire us for generations to come. The Virgin Islands has lost one of its great creative and cultural visionaries with the passing of Gerville René Larson. Now, everyone knows Gerville was more than an architect. He was a steward of our history and an artist of our identity. His work captured the spirit of these islands, ensuring that the stories of our people and the beauty of our heritage were preserved for generations to come. After earning his degree in architecture from Cornell, Gerville returned home to his beloved St. Croix, choosing to live in his grandparents' home in the heart of Times Square, downtown Christiansted. From there, he poured his heart into our community, using his immense talent to collaborate with both public and private sectors on projects dedicated to historical architectural preservation. Through his firm, Tyler Largesse, LLC, he designed with reverence for our past and vision for our future. You know, I was blessed to know Gerville, not only as a respected colleague on boards and an admired fellow Hillsider descendant, but as my neighbor and my friend. Our best talks were as we were cleaning the respective streets we lived on, meeting up, hailing each other as neighbors, and then going into a deep discussion about the beauty of Christiansted and the history, the free enslaved people who lived in the hills of Christiansted, and what that heritage meant to each one of us. Gerville's belief that architecture is a vessel for culture and memory continues to guide us. His mark is visible through the Virgin Islands, but particularly on St. Croix, in the buildings he restored, the spaces he
If you have dementia or are afraid you might have it, you shouldn't drink warm water, and I'll explain.
Today's hearing is meant to bring attention to an incredibly important issue for so many of America's seniors, especially as we move into the holiday season. We're here to focus on how to best serve older Americans who want to spend their senior years in the comfort of their own homes. And while there are so many positives about aging in place that we'll highlight today, we're also here to shine a light on the often unreported crisis of isolation and loneliness. We should be doing everything possible to support seniors who strive to age in place, and today we'll focus on how Congress can reauthorize the Older Americans Act, known as the OAA to continue many critical programs that support seniors with this goal. Last week, we all celebrated Thanksgiving, and later this month, families across America will be celebrating Hanukkah and Christmas. For many of us, that means spending time with family and loved ones. In my case, I got to help my 5-year-old granddaughter win in Uno. She loved to give away +4s to people, and I learned 2/3 of how to do a Rubik's Cube, because that's my 12-year-old grandson does.
Wow.
Yeah. So he told me that the last part was the hardest. While these moments are a time to cherish time with loved ones, they can also be a difficult reminder of loss for older Americans who no longer have the ability to spend the holidays with their friends, spouse, or even their children. We all know the importance of taking care of our seniors. For many older Americans who choose to age in place, our goal should always be to help them have the best possible care and support. They should always have the opportunity to remain in the homes and neighborhoods they love. That is why community, strong families, faith-based organizations, volunteers, OAA programs are so important to our aging population, especially during this time of year. In my home state of Florida, which is quite a bit warmer than it is here, there are many seniors who cannot travel during the holiday season. Thankfully, many communities have the resources to give our seniors the care and attention they deserve. Combating the feeling of isolation and loneliness for our aging community has endless benefits, from better mental and physical health to stronger multi-generational relationships with families and communities, supporting healthier and more resilient communities. We can all agree that community matters. Strong families, faith-based organizations, volunteers, and the programs supported by the OAA create the foundation that allows older Americans to choose who choose to age in place to remain in the homes and neighborhoods they love. That's why supporting the successful programs made possible by the OAA and showing how faith-based groups, nonprofits, and service organizations strengthen families is so important to the work of this committee. During the holidays, when both loneliness and the demand for caregiving rise, these supports become even more critical. Aging in place is good for families, communities, and taxpayers. Strengthening these programs is a bipartisan commitment to dignity, independence, and the American way of life. For 60 years, the OAA has helped innumerable seniors by promoting social connection and life-affirming support programs. Over 10 million older Americans a year are helped by programs covered by the OAA. The OAA continues to serve as the backbone of many assistance programs that help ensure older Americans can age in place with dignity. I'm proud to work with Ranking Member Gillibrand, as well as Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Committee Chairman Cassidy and Ranking Member Sanders to fight for the reauthorization of this important piece of legislation, which is a critical tool in our arsenal to support seniors. I'm also working with fellow committee member Senator Warnock on legislation to address senior loneliness through Older American Act funding. My Senior Act expands the scope of grants to include services that address.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, I think you know that I have great respect.
That helps anyone other than the big airlines. The airline industry has been one of the most powerful lobbies in Washington. They have a full-time lobbying presence right here in Washington, D.C. 24/7, ready to go to lobby members of Congress and government officials on behalf of the airlines. And maybe so that they could make sure that Donald Trump is listening, both United and Delta gave $1 million to Trump's inauguration fund. And surprise, surprise, airline executives don't want to have to compensate you even when the airlines mess up. So the Trump administration handed this gift over to the airlines on a silver platter. And the guy who handed it over, his name is Sean Duffy. He is Trump's head of the Department of Transportation. What job did Mr. Duffy have before becoming Trump's Secretary of Transportation? Answer, he was a lobbyist for the airline industry.
It's time to intervene. It's time to do what we requested of our governor several weeks ago, send in the National Guard. Mr. Speaker, big insurance is swimming in money, swimming in your taxpayer dollars, swimming in the money that is supposed to be helping patients. Obamacare is a broken system that has allowed insurance companies to rip off the American taxpayers and simply drive up costs. But if Congress wants to talk health care, then let's talk. But we must let these COVID-era subsidies expire first. Biden's COVID credits are a pandemic policy that has done nothing to lower insurance costs. Premiums are rising because Obamacare has failed to keep its promise of making health care affordable. Not only are Biden's COVID credits failing to keep costs down and paid straight to insurance companies, but they will cost taxpayers over $400 billion in the next decade. Listen, with a country facing $39 trillion in debt, this is again a reason to let these COVID subsidies expire. But letting Biden-era COVID subsidies expire is just a drop in the bucket when it comes to